Welcome to the Black Male Impact. My name is Dr. Richard A. Cross, and today we have as guest Mr. Robert Hazzard, Jr. So, for those who are here with us, though, before we get into the conversation and before we start this talk that we have this evening, which is about thinking beyond limits. I just want to ask those who are here with us, please share. I know we have some guests that will be coming in and asking their questions and sharing their perspective during this conversation today. But before we get started, please share this with your network. I can guarantee you will get something from this conversation. And just as you have been looking forward to having this conversation because I know there will be insights and perspectives that will be shared that I myself can benefit from, um, during this conversation. So I'm just going to briefly introduce Mr. Hazard, and then I'll give him the floor to talk more about himself and what we will be talking about today, which will be later on. But before I even put him on the floor, I just want to say this. Yeah, this platform, the Black Male Impact, is about us as Black men and what we are doing and what we need to do to make a difference and to change the narrative. And our past may hold struggles, setbacks, and painful experiences, but it does not determine the greatness we are capable of achieving. That is something that we know, but it's time for us to act on what we are capable of doing. Mr. Hazard, please go ahead and share with the listeners more about yourself before we get into this conversation today.
Well, first of all, thank you so much, Dr. Cross, for having me again. It's always an amazing time to be able to talk with you and all the amazing things that you're doing, in the marketplace. But for those who don't know, my name's Robert Hazard. I have a company called the Hazzard Group. I'm actually a father of two, and so I have a boy and a girl, as well as four grandkids. So, you know. Um, Parenting, and even though they're pretty much grown, but my grandkids and being involved in their lives is something that I take very serious, and I'm passionate about.
Man, that is great. And as for what they say about black men, that is
Yeah.
extra,
Mhm.
special, not just for the
Mhm.
kids, but also for the grandkids. But that's one thing that they share about us, but it's not always true, because statistics have shown that black
Mhm.
men have been present
Mhm.
in their
Mhm.
kids' life. Yes, just like everybody else, there are men out there who are not doing what they're
Mhm.
supposed to do, but
Mhm.
that's why we're here today to have conversation, not only about what we're doing, but what we can do
Mhm.
better, so we can
Mhm.
move forward as a collective. But before, as I said, this is your second time here, man.
Yep.
The first time, I tell you, I had a lot of questions, a lot of engagement during that conversation.
Mhm.
So we're looking
Mhm.
forward to the same thing here, and for the feedback that have been
Mhm.
getting on social media after it was posted. So I'm looking forward to see some of those faces here with us, asking their questions or even sharing their perspective. But I'm going to start off with this question. And just to remind the listeners who are here, the conversation is about dismantling limited social construct, thinking beyond limits. So, my first question to you: what limited belief were you taught growing up that you had to unlearn to become who you are today?
Wow. When I thought about that, when you gave me that question, I had to go back and think. But one of the things that I think that was really important about that question, because I grew up pretty much like most people, that I grew up with the message that success would be a straight line. You just do this and you'll be successful. And what that means is going to school, get a job, work, in hard work, and then retire. And in some cases, for some people, depending on in my father's age group, they get a gold, well, the silver watch, but they get, a gold watch, in a pin. But and it sounded responsible, but it was putting me in a box, right? And I think that what I had to unlearn is that there's so many different ways to measure, success. So I once understood that once I understood that my life could be successful built on some other things, which included purpose and security. um, I took off. And so I started making, or not security, but I took off and started making bold moves and moving about. And that was the thing, which those moves, led me to, the entrepreneur space, right? And mentorship and creating spaces, for others to grow. But that
Correct.
took some time to do it.
Oh, yes. And as you talk about bold move, I came across a post earlier today that said if you really want to be successful, you have to make bold moves. And as you talk about, the way you see your father, grew
Mm-hmm,
up, and what
hmm
they talk about what success is, to achieve success that you can leave, pass on to others, not just
Yep.
something you can enjoy for yourself. That
hmm
includes bold move, doing the things
Yep.
that sometimes seem risky
hmm
to the average person. But that's a great reminder, purpose and bold move. And if we want to make a tremendous impact, we have to align ourselves with a purpose and
Yeah.
be willing to take the risk.
It's not to cut you off, but it made me think about. I was having a conversation, with a buddy of mine just the other day. One of the other things that we're always faced, or I've been faced with growing up, even in my corporate life, is you can only be known for one thing
Wow.
in one thing only. That's the thing that you have to be good at, right? Just focus on the one thing and you'll be great. Now, we have learned, as we've matured, that you can be known for many things,
Correct.
and that's the whole thing. So you talk about having to unlearn some things.
Yeah.
That was also something that I had to unlearn. That I could be great in other areas, as well, not just in, sales as an example.
Correct. And that's where it comes, where we are now here thinking beyond limits. And
Yep.
some of those limits, they were placed on us by
hmm
our environment, by our families, by people who are closest to us. And some of the
hmm
social construct that we
hmm
hear,
hmm
especially when it comes to us as Black men. My
Yep.
next question to you is, can you share a moment when you realized society had placed a ceiling on your potential and how you broke through it?
So, when I think back to my corporate career, I was in a couple different industries and worked for some major companies, right? And I was told, early in that career, because you're trying to get soak up as much knowledge, from people as possible. I was told that I should stay in my lane, right? And that was a code for, don't push beyond, what we think you can do. And, for me, I broke through those barriers, by building relationships outside of my immediate circle. So I would form relationships with, mentors in various industries, many of who did not look like me.
Right.
And so I started saying yes to opportunities because, it didn't scare me. I wanted to move outside, of the box that people wanted to put me in. And so I stopped asking for permission and I just started doing it.
And those are two important reminders. Build relationships.
hmm
And it's important, especially if we have the desire to do more, if we have the
Sure.
desire to even to make a tremendous impact. It's important that
hmm
we build relationships, and those relationships,
hmm
will not always be someone who look like us. And
hmm
in all honesty, when you desire to make a difference, we have to be open-minded, because the answer we want may not come from someone we know.
Right.
It
Right.
may come from someone else. So we have to be open-minded. Once the person is willing to share the knowledge, to give us a blueprint, It's on
Hmm.
us now to be open minded. And we
Hmm.
all read books that are written by other people. So it's the
Yeah.
same thing.
Yeah. It totally. I mean, so once I started figuring out, you know, what I wanted to build my life around,
Yeah.
the impact that I wanted to make, I started making, in when I say impact, I'm thinking about purpose, that I had for my life. I started making bold moves then. So as I said, moving into entrepreneurship, I knew nothing about entrepreneurship. I was a corporate guy. I went from, working in a grocery store, back in the day so that I could, you know, get some money doing a paper route and, some of the other things. But man, once they put me into that corporate space, I started excelling, but it was only because someone saw something in me, and once they saw something in me, and interestingly, I worked in the mail room, back in the day, as well, for a bank, and they told me, Dr. Cross, they said, you know what, I got to tell you, and it was on night shift.
Yeah.
They said, you don't belong here.
Wow.
This isn't for you. We got to find out, about getting you into a different space, within the bank. So I went from working in the mailroom to working, into, a banking division or sales division of that bank,
Oh, wow.
to, being a somewhat of an officer, of the bank. But it I say that because, the lady, she's deceased now, but when she saw that I didn't belong, she started creating some avenues for me to be able to move up in the organization. And that's all I needed. Because once you let the cat out the gate, I'm going to figure out how to do the rest. And that's what happened.
But that's a valuable point, and
Hmm.
not just what she did, the lady that saw something else in you.
Hmm.
And being that we are thinking beyond limits, as
Hmm.
black men,
Hmm.
it's our responsibility, especially when we're in position, when we
Hmm.
see the potential in others, we should not be scared of the potential, but help to
Hmm.
amplify
Yep.
that potential.
Hmm. Hmm.
And if we're going to break barriers, change the narrative, we have to create an avenue for those we see with the
Hmm.
potential, because we don't know exactly who will be, say, the star, who is going to create something exceptional for more people to have
Hmm.
an opportunity. Just
Hmm.
as the lady saw something in you, she could have overlooked it and
Yeah.
allow you to stay where you are. But
Hmm.
she say, you know
Hmm.
what? Man, Robert, you're doing great here, and you are displaying some qualities that I believe you could do over here. And that's
Hmm.
what we have to do. We
Hmm.
have to be willing to highlight the
Hmm.
greatness we see in others and help
Hmm.
them to find a path that may be more fulfilling or fitting
Hmm. Hmm.
to their skill set, their
Hmm.
greatness. And, because our community needs that. And so
Yeah.
I'm really glad that you pointed out, but also you said something that I believe we all need to be open to, and that is saying yes to opportunities.
Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
sometimes those opportunities are not what we can do readily, but we can learn
Hmm.
if we're open minded. But
Hmm.
I want to ask you, in what ways have you challenged the stereotypes or boxes people tried to put you in?
You know, um, People often see a black man, and immediately attach a single story to us. And the story is, you know, he's an athlete, he's an entertainer, or someone who just got lucky,
Yeah.
right? And so because he got lucky, that's where he is. And so I've always challenged that narrative, that story that people want to, put me in a box. And that's why I said initially getting mentors from different industries and things like that. I showed versatility because, while working in, corporate America, putting together strategy, for those organizations so that they could be successful, that helped me, to be, successful. I took on something, within the wine and spirits industry. I worked for, a distributor or worked with a distributor on getting their brands out. That's something, that's something different. It's scary to do. I didn't know anything about, necessarily wine except drinking it, but, and champagne. But I said yes to the opportunities that scared me. And I
Correct.
think that that's one of the things that we all have to do is say yes and be curious. So it helped me, to be able to do that. And then, running multiple businesses because, I run multiple, micro businesses in helping those businesses to grow. So life didn't allow for me to fit in a box,
Correct.
right there. So but I did it all on purpose. I'm purpose driven. We talk about it, we hear about it, but that's how I flow.
So, what does thinking beyond limits look like in your everyday life? I know you talk about doing multiple business. I
Hmm.
know you challenge yourself despite not knowing
Hmm.
what may be expected of you venturing into new opportunities. But
Hmm.
what does thinking beyond limits look like for you in your everyday life?
Well, it looks like that. There's not anything that I can't do. I learned that a long time ago. If I put my mind to it, I can do it. And I think that one of the things that is I mentioned to you that that works for me is I have to do a daily choice every day. I make the decision every day that I'm gonna let fear or lack go, and I'm gonna take the risk. And that has helped me with doing it. I talk about being a risk taker, but I have reminded myself that the ceiling is only there for those that want to only go so far. But I don't see a ceiling with what I do.
Correct, correct, and that's a important mindset to have, because sometimes we are the ones who put limits on
We do.
ourselves. You know, society may limit us, but
Yeah,
we internalize that limitation, and then we
yeah,
put that limitation on ourselves, and we will never do more or go
yeah,
further than what we
yeah,
believe.
yeah. Absolutely, absolutely. I
and
agree.
and and a lot of people stop themselves from excelling, from achieving more, from doing the things that they are more than capable of, because they may be thinking about failure, they may be thinking about the opinions of others, they may be thinking, what if they try and fail, not
Yeah,
realizing what if they try and succeed.
yeah. There's a book. I think it's Ryan Leak wrote a book about chasing failure, and it's a popular book. And I said, "Wow, I need to look at that and start chasing failure because once you embrace it, you can only exceed from there because you're not worried anymore, about not being able to do it."
Correct. And believe
Yeah.
it or not, that's what the post was talking about. The gentleman said, I don't remember his name right now. He talks a lot about leadership,
Hmm.
but he said once he decided to take the risk, chase, as you say, failure, make bold moves,
Yeah.
he increased in
Hmm.
every area of his business 10 times
Hmm.
because he
Hmm.
was willing to take risks, do what people may see as, what if you fail? But he said he
Yeah.
has been comfortable all his life and he was not achieving the goals he want or have for
Hmm.
himself. And once
Hmm.
he start to take the risk and make bold moves
Yeah.
and chase the failure, just in case, he start to achieve more. So
Hmm.
how has your definition of success evolved as you have grown and shed external expectations?
Well, when I think about when I was younger, I used to chase titles. So success looked like, oh, I've got a VP title, or, I've got a manager title. And with that title comes, income, and especially when I moved into, the sales roles that I had, and they told me, man, you can make unlimited, commissions.
Wow.
So I'm saying, okay, let me figure out how I can make, so much money, to be able to do that. But, and the other thing that we think about is recognition. I mean, we see it today with, when we post things, on social media, we're looking for potential likes or followers or things like that. But I found for me that all of these, what's really, most important, success allows for freedom, freedom to be able to live the way I want to live, freedom to be able to work, the way I want to work, as well as travel. So I stopped, you know, focusing on just titles, but there are other things that I wanted, as a result of that as well. And so it gave me the freedom to be able to pour into other people too. There is something that I talk about, that success comes from helping other people when you give back. And that's one of the things you see with my mentoring programs that, I put a lot of work into. It gives me the opportunity to give back. And I see that as, successful because it allows, it's a form of freedom, for me as well.
But as you talk about titles, as you know, when you started, you chased the titles because you think that would be what is considered a success.
Yeah.
But let me ask this question: from your perspective,
hmm
do you find or have seen individuals get to those positions and change how they treat people?
Absolutely. I mean, so yeah, I've trained some of those people, in my roles to learn how to do a particular skill, and at the job that we're at, right? And they bring in somebody and they say, well, you train them because you're the subject matter expert. Train them on that, and of course, once they take on that leadership role that I didn't get, I've seen them, treat people bad, but that's never been, I have a spiritual background as well, or foundation, so it wouldn't allow me to treat somebody bad.
So, and being that we're on this subject, and a lot of us do, are aspiring to be in positions of leadership, what would you say to someone who, once they get there, being that, we needs to, set examples, we need to
hmm
model what we
hmm
want the next generation to start to live out. What would you
hmm
say to those who are listening? Once you get there, what should their expectations be?
Well, I think that once we get to a leadership position, it's really about listening to the people that you are leading. So again, it comes back to being curious and understanding. You don't know it. I don't know it all. Let me just say that.
Right.
I don't know it all. So if I surround myself with people who think differently than me, that are just as curious about the things that they're investing in, I think it's a two-way street, especially once you build trust.
Okay.
Trust is one of the main things that we need to do as leaders. Build trust within our people.
Man, and that is important. And I'm glad that you say that because, for us,
hmm
that's one thing that sometimes seems lacking within our group, trust
hmm
with each other. And if
Yeah.
we're going to break the cycle or break away from the distrust that have been maybe socially engineered, so we are carrying on
Yeah.
what we have been conditioned to think about each other.
Sure.
So it's important that we treat those individuals we are around with
hmm
respect and
hmm
dignity so we
hmm
can build the trust or
hmm
heal what we have inherited.
hmm
Because, that's one of the challenges we have as black men amongst each other, the
Yeah.
distrust. And so I'm
hmm
really glad that you mentioned that the importance of building trust, and that includes listening and having respect for those, especially who we are entrusted to lead. So, but I want to continue on, going, thinking beyond limits. So, how do you stay grounded in your identity while still pushing yourself to evolve?
I connect everything to my why. Why I mentor, why my purpose is about, building generational impact, showing others what's possible. Remember, I said leadership, for us as leaders, if we lead and show people how they can, move to the next levels, that trust piece of it will allow that to happen. And that has actually helped me with, being successful the way I am today. Going back to my why. And sometimes we have to revisit, our why, because we can get lost, chasing trends and empty validation. But if you tie back to your why and what your purpose is, you'll never get lost.
Man, and that's a very important reminder. I have a question that I have skipped over that I want to ask. Um, what was not what? Sorry. Was there ever a time you felt pressured to shrink your dreams? What made you expand them again?
I was hoping you weren't going to ask me that question, but but I remember that question. But I think back when my marriage ended, um, right after I'd taken a buyout, from my corporate job, and causing me to have to go through a season of where I questioned, myself. Was I too much? Was I too ambitious? Too driven? But it was at that point that I realized, that you know shrinking myself would not make me happy, and and it wouldn't have the impact on my children or the people that I mentored. So I started dreaming bigger and surrounding myself around people who just didn't tolerate my vision. They actually fueled it. So when I think back to, I had an agreement, or we had an agreement, you know, um, while I was married, that the package might be better for me, so that I could start the Hazard Group, and be successful because I was, successful in sales, right? Um, Many times, overachieving and winning Diamond Club trips, year after year after year. But when I took that buyout, I had no idea, that my life was going to be, the way it was. Because as I said, I didn't know anything about, entrepreneurship. So I'm stepping out, into something else. But I had my kids looking at me, I had others looking at me, and I was determined, to be successful no matter what.
And that's a very important reminder, which you state, shrinking will not make me happy.
That,
And a lot of times we do think, because of what people may think,
hmm
we limit ourselves. But guess what? What I find, either way,
hmm
if you shrink to please others, you're not going to be happy. So might as well you do what's going to make you happy. Sometimes, as you mentioned, it didn't really work in all areas for you once you
hmm
do that.
hmm
But you know, for most people who achieve great things, they
hmm
realize they couldn't shrink to fit into spaces that they have not say outgrown, but did not
Sure.
really see their vision. And
hmm
sometimes it costs us, to lose people that we love. Not just you, but other people. You have heard several successful stories that have happened.
hmm
But I really like what you have stated, that shrinking will not make me happy.
hmm
And that is one thing that we have to remind ourselves, that we cannot shrink to fit into environments that will limit us.
Absolutely not. Yeah.
I think that is really important, and important reminder. So,
hmm
what internal narrative did you have to rewrite to fully embrace your greatness?
So, with that, I had to stop telling myself that, that I had to earn, my worth through my work, through my perfectionism.
Hmm.
I started believing that I was already enough. I can already do these great things. And so my value wasn't tied to, what people thought of me. And so from there, once I got to that point, I started producing and excelling the way I wanted to excel.
Man, that is a very important reminder again, because as you say, we think we have to do so much to feel valued or think
Hmm.
we are worthy of what we are pursuing. But we have to believe first, or
Hmm.
know that we are worthy of whatever we want, are
Yeah.
enough for whatever we want. We are already enough. But so many of us do think we are not enough.
Yeah.
So, being that you have said that, what would you say to those who are listening, especially us as black men, who may not think they are enough?
Well, first of all, for the black man, I want to say that first of all, I have a sweater, or rather a shirt that says, you matter, you are enough. Is one of my other favorite hoodies that I like to wear because it's really about, to me, changing your mindset. Once you start believing, it's like, I want to say that, was it Michael Jordan or God, I can't think of the guy that that we don't listen to anymore, but he says, "I believe I can fly."
Oh, R.
I
Kelly?
believe R. Kelly. I believe I can touch the sky. Right? I think about it every night and day.
Yeah.
So if we start, that's a mindset shift. Once we start, believing that we can do just about anything, we will do it. I was fortunate to have, a father active in my life, as I was growing up. And my father used to say, you can do anything you want. And that was kind of the reassurance. So I say that to black men, or men in general. You can do anything you want to do, is just got to put your mind to it. And if you're not sure, mirror yourself with someone who you see that is potentially successful in the areas that you want to be successful in, and go for it. That's why the relationships are really, I think relationships, partnerships are all important.
And that is also important, an important reminder. Seeing the success in others that you'd like to be like.
Yep.
Because sometimes you have to use what they have accomplished to believe you can. So
Yep.
use their success as
Hmm.
benchmark to what
Yep.
is possible. Because
Yeah.
if they have done it, it's a possibility that I can do it. It takes hard work, it takes discipline, it takes dedication.
It's all of that. I mean, when I came into a sales organization for for a mobile company, one of the largest here in the U.S., and I went into I came out of banking, and then I went into technology, and I never forgot the guys at the top salespeople. I went into one of the offices, and I was meeting with the managers and directors of that organization. And one of the guys, I looked at the leaderboard and I saw, these individuals' names up on the leaderboard, and we're selling technology, right?
Right.
It wasn't really, hard back then to sell technology, but you had to be great at storytelling and connecting the dots. But the point that I'm making here is when I saw their names up there and I started asking questions, how did they get, here, to be able to be on the top? And one of the gentlemen, we're good friends today. He said, you know what? All you have to do is just sell one piece of technology to one company and watch it grow, and it'll start snowballing. And man, Dr. Cross, when he told me that,
Yeah.
I said, okay, I can do that. That's pretty simple. And so I started building relationships with these major companies and just getting one piece of technology into that company, and it just started skyrocketing, rocketing from there.
And you know what happened too? I believe that one sale build the confidence that this is possible. Now I can believe.
Yep.
Once I, do one,
Right.
what I want to do, now I have the belief. And sometimes that's what it takes.
Yeah.
That does one win,
Mm-hmm.
to create that, as you mentioned, the snowball effect,
Yep.
where
Yep.
it just start to happen. And
Yep.
sometimes it's to get to that one win. And sometimes, we quit before we reach that one win.
Yeah.
So we
Yeah.
end up not achieving what we want. And sometimes it takes several no's before we get to that one win. But that's a really important reminder. But as it comes to us as black men, it's just for us to believe,
Hmm.
to know that we matter, no
Yep.
matter what
Hmm.
society may say,
Hmm.
and start doing the thing that we want to do. Because once we start and we achieve one success, I can tell you, I know that a fact. One success change everything. You just have to go until you achieve that one success and
So
use that.
yeah. So think about this for a moment. To kind of go back to that when we talk about the no's that we get, right? You know, I've always envisioned no just means not right now,
Hmm.
or no in some areas, depending on what solution I'm providing for them, is possibly means that I haven't convinced them how this solution or product is really going to solve their needs. So it still creates an opportunity for me to be able to do that. But man, once I get you give me so many no's, I know a yes is coming. And once that yes comes, I'm good to go.
Man, that is important and an important reminder, because on this journey,
Yep.
there will be adversities,
Yep.
especially when it comes to um, thinking beyond limits and even
Hmm.
dismantling the
Hmm.
limited social construct.
Hmm.
Because what stops us is not our ability or lack thereof,
Hmm.
it's what we have been conditioned to think.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
there are so many proof out there of successful black men, who have to overcome challenges and adversities to achieve their goals.
Hmm.
So internally or innately, they do have the ability. So we do too.
Hmm. Absolutely.
I think,
Absolutely.
and I think that's a reminder that we must have. And nothing is wrong with reminding ourselves.
Right.
It doesn't matter how much we have achieved, because the successful people will tell you they listen to what reminds them
Hmm.
of what they're
Hmm.
capable of
Hmm.
daily.
Yep. Absolutely.
So, what internal narrative did you have to rewrite to fully embrace your greatness?
Um, Again, I had to, tell myself that I can achieve just about anything that I set my mind to. So, when I started believing that I could do that, again, it's the internal piece of it, and I don't think we talk about this enough. But particularly even during the pandemic, I would listen to a lot of different podcasts, you know, that would reshape my brain, right? The positive things that would help me to be able to understand that I could just about do anything that I want to do. So that had that was the reshaping, putting positive things into my mind. Wake up, affirmations. Those are types of things that I did that helped me to see that I could be there, in the C-suite, in with these trophies in my hand and things like that. So I had to rewrite that because you know, depending on where we live and how we grow up, we may not see people like ourselves being successful. So we
Correct.
might have to, move outside of where we are.
Yeah, I think that is important and an important reminder,
Yep.
that sometimes we have to get out of our comfort zone to be around people who will help us to believe that
Hmm.
more is possible.
Yep.
Because our environment at times, can limit us, but what we
Hmm.
expose ourselves to. And I don't remember when I came across this book. I don't even remember the book. I think it was a book by one of the books that Can Feel or
Hmm.
so wrote. And
Hmm.
just get outside of your comfort zone. Get around people who are successful, and then you start to watch their habits and to learn from them, and that will help you to change your perspective of life and what you believe is possible. Because when you do listen to stories of some of these successful individuals, they too start at the bottom. They start with very little and
Yeah.
achieve extraordinary success. So
And they'll
that,
tell you that, that they failed.
yeah,
I was listening to one of the CEOs for a company today. I don't know if it was Xerox or I mean, excuse me, IBM or one of the others. And and he talked about the fact that um, you know, he failed at leadership, right? And so when he talked about that, I said, huh, okay, what did you do? He went and talked to some other people and got some, feedback from them, to tell him what he could do, differently. He took that feedback, listened, because we got to listen, right?
right.
And so, and his trajectory, started, moving up. But again, it's about taking risks too, because if you're not a, I don't know if you're a gambler. I'm not really a gambler, but the fact of it is you've got to bet on things, and in most cases, as black men, we have to bet on ourselves.
That is important. We all may not be gamblers, but we have to bet on ourselves, and that
Hmm.
is important. And
Hmm.
that means we cannot give up despite what we may come up against.
Hmm.
Especially again when it comes to thinking beyond limits.
Yep.
If we're going to achieve more than the ordinary, we have to bet on ourselves. And betting on
Hmm.
ourselves doesn't mean we have to have all the resources. It
Right.
even is more important when we don't.
Right.
That we are going to achieve what we set out to achieve despite not having the resources. And
Hmm.
it's in those moments, it really shows if you are serious about what you say you want, especially when you don't have the resources. And there are
Hmm.
several individuals out there who, again, didn't start with much,
Hmm.
but have achieved great success because they bet on themselves. So, who or what helps you to realize that you are more than what society tells you?
My mentors, my circle of friends, who saw me, saw things in me. I mentioned, when I was in the mailroom, they saw something in me before I saw it in me. So what happens is, when you have that circle of trust or friends or mentors, they can breathe into you, right? And my own curiosity. I have always been, a person that's curious, about how something was built, or how did they achieve, I'm a bowler, but how did they bowl the way they did? So it's all of those things. My curiosity. I study people and I ask questions, and so that actually helped me when we're talking about But all it takes is one person to believe in you and get your ear to kind of tell you, hey, listen, you're actually better than you think at doing X, Y, Z, and that's really what helped.
Man, that is important. And words itself can help you to change the way you think about yourself, especially when it's coming from someone who believes in you. And
Yeah,
sometimes it could be a stranger, that,
yeah,
man, I see that you have disability. I believe you can do this. And then you start questioning yourself, man, how do they know that I can do this? And then, it plants a seed of belief. And from that belief, at times, grow into something extraordinary. And as one of the person here said, the power of belief can really
absolutely.
change our trajectory in life. And
Hmm.
sometimes we have to borrow the beliefs of others, of
Hmm.
us, to
Yeah.
start to believe in who we are and what we are capable of achieving. So, how do you balance honoring your past while pursuing a future that defines expectations?
So I honor my past by telling my story. When I'm mentoring the next generation, I can tell them about the failures. We don't always want to, It's not always about the successes, but it is about the failures where people, can learn. And so I pursue that, and I also make sure that I'm talking about the mistakes that I made. What were the mistakes and what were the lessons? Because sometimes we can talk about the mistakes, but if we haven't learned any lessons, from those mistakes, you're bound to repeat them again. So that piece of it has helped me to be able to, when I look at the possibilities, because I failed today, but if you people that know me know that if I get another opportunity tomorrow, I'm going to definitely do better tomorrow because I've learned from that falling on my face, piece of it. But I share, where I've not been, successful in the hard role, the hard things that I've had to do to be a successful salesperson.
Correct.
That's not, we just see the trophies and things like that, but you don't see the blood, sweat, and tears that went along with that. And that's, I have no problem sharing those types of things.
And I think that is important because, people will look at you, look at individuals, and all they see is the success. And sometimes it can be intimidating
Hmm.
to others because they're seeing only the success and saying to themselves, no, I can't get to that level. Not until they hear what you have to overcome
Right.
to get to that level. So I think
Yeah,
the adversities, the failures are important.
absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
from the failures that you have shared, what are some of, especially when you're mentoring, like say the younger
Hmm.
generation, what are
Hmm.
some of the things they would have said to you when they hear that you have failed before success or was in pursuit of success?
So most of the times, depending on, the environment, I'm in a suit,
Yeah.
when I'm talking to, people in Dr. Cross, why I wear a suit, when I'm, having conversations with men, because I want them to be able to see, what it looks like for men. All of us aren't, walking around with our pants, hanging down and things like that. So I show up. This is my brand, the way I show up, and so that's important to me. So I talk to young people as well as older people about how to show, how respect and all. If you want respect from people, you have to be respectful. So when, and I demand respect. So those are that's one of the ways in terms of how I show up. And people, they'll you have to make yourself approachable.
Correct.
And if you're making yourself approachable, people will ask. They'll want to learn. They're curious, how you did what you did. And I share with them.
I think those are great reminders. Make yourself approachable
Hmm.
and just show up and knowing that you are the brand, you are representing yourself. And that is one thing a mentor of mine said to me before, Dr. Dennis Kimbrough, when I
Hmm.
just started
I have his book.
oh yeah, yeah, man. That Dr. Kimbrough is one of the leading, not to say personal development, but especially when it comes to Black wealth,
Hmm.
because you have spent extensive amount of time, interviewing Black individuals who have achieved extraordinary success. But I remember when I just started teaching my
Hmm.
first semester,
Hmm.
teaching at a community college in Atlanta. And
Hmm.
I went to his office because someone told me if you're in Georgia and you are in education, you need to go and see Dr. Kimbrough. So I went
Yep.
and, he told me a lot of stuff and he gave me his books and stuff like that. But he said to me, man, you are always representing yourself.
Hmm.
So it
Hmm.
doesn't matter the environment you are in, you must always remember you are representing yourself and you need to show up as the best you regardless of the
Hmm.
environment that you're in,
Hmm.
regardless of what
Hmm.
people are
Yep.
doing around you.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I take that and I ran with it. Along the
Yeah.
other lessons that he shared with me in that moment. But that's one thing that I always remember. Being that
Hmm.
I was a person that tried to present myself the best way.
Yep.
But that really helps me to own it,
Hmm.
that
Yeah.
you are supposed to be the best you, no
Hmm.
matter the environment, no matter what other people are doing around you. You're
Hmm.
always representing yourself.
You're the brand. You're the brand. I think Dr. Kimbrell is he still teaching at Clark?
I think he's still there. I think
Okay.
he's now
Yeah.
maybe 25 years in.
Okay.
And
Yeah. My daughter went to Clark Atlanta.
okay,
So yeah, so she went to Clark Atlanta, and so yeah, so I think that we're the brands.
correct,
So we have to represent ourselves, in a way that the brand, which is us, is respected.
correct. And people are always watching, even when we don't
Absolutely.
think
Yeah.
they
Yeah.
are watching. I tell you, even in the gym, it doesn't matter where you are.
I see you
People,
in the gym working out. Yeah.
that's right, man. Some people do come up like weeks after and say, "Man, I saw you from the first time. You
Hmm.
get it." So, and that also reminds me that even though I don't see who is looking,
Yeah.
they are,
Yeah. My
and that.
grandkids are looking. My
Oh,
granddaughter, will tell me, I see you, and if I do something different than what I was doing before, she's going to point it out to me. You're doing something different. You see what I'm saying? So everybody's always watching.
oh yeah, more people than we think.
Yep.
And I see one of our connections here from LinkedIn with us. Just stated Black Men Networking. And this is what this is really about, for
Hmm.
us to connect with each other and to share insights and perspective,
Hmm. Hmm.
share our lessons and
Hmm.
our successes and challenges so we can help each other to be the best that we can be. So, my next question to you: how do you balance? No, I think I just asked the question. What role has healing or self reflection played in your ability to think beyond limitations?
So through healing and self-reflection, which are non-negotiable, I have no limit about the whole healing aspect of it. But I think without that, I would be in a circle and running around like a, a chicken with my head cut off. But healing and self-reflection has allowed me to excel, and because it's also allowed me to pause because I see that wait, this hasn't been working for me. I need to stop for a minute and figure out what am I doing wrong. In that pause has allowed me to look at what my next move might be. And so when we talk about healing, we talk about I look at it from therapy because I'm definitely about black men in therapy and getting therapy, and that has also helped me to be able to you know do things differently in life as well. So that's the whole self-reflection. When you sit with a counselor, a therapist, and they're telling you about some things that hey, maybe you could look at this a little differently. Try this. Those are things that have been able to help me to be able to excel.
Yeah. So, what would you say to a black man right now who still not find it easy to get that type of support? Because even on the um, I was just hearing on social media on YouTube earlier
Uh-huh, uh-huh.
where I think it's in the millions. They were saying that men from statistics or research that I think it was like 5 million men
Hmm. Hmm.
from research say they are lonely or dealing with
The lonely
um,
epidemic. Hmm.
depression because they are not talking to each other or find it hard to talk about the challenge, talk about the hurt, talk about what they are dealing with internally. So, what would you say to just anyone that's listening who still find it hard to seek help or support?
So this month is Suicide Awareness Month still. Um, you know, just pick up the phone. Find somebody that you can talk to in your. I mean, we all have a vast circle, and sometimes we're afraid of talking to our brothers because we don't want to be ridiculed, right? You know when you know when I failed when my marriage failed, it depression set in, right? And it wasn't something that I felt like that I could talk to my guys about, especially the ones that are married, that I felt bad about. Man, I failed at this. But it wasn't until I had those sidebar conversations with a few of my trusted male friends that they were listening, and they gave good feedback and direction about it. Yes, the loneliness epidemic is real, but there are people that you can talk to. And in fact, I don't think we talk about it enough, Dr. Cross, but there's a suicide prevention number that people can call and be able to talk to somebody who's judgment free and doing those types of things. But what I'd like to say to any man out there that might be struggling in that area is just take the first step. If you take the first step, it's just like dealing with the nose, you'll be able to make some improvement because it's not as bad as you think. I also want to say that I think that social media and other mediums kind of paint a bad picture of us. There are black men that are, into mental health. There, as you do it, they're just as much as into mental health as you are with working out.
Yeah.
And it's hard, but they're doing it.
Yeah.
We need to be able to see that. You may recall when, there was, I think it was in Boston, where they were asking men to show up at the schools, for the first day of school. And they put it out there. All those men started showing up, showing those kids that they're there.
Oh yeah.
It's that type of thing that we need to do.
Well, and man, and that is true, where once you ask the question or even provide the avenue
Yeah.
and make it, more a judgment free
Yeah.
way of doing it,
Hmm.
they will. And I tell you, last Saturday I had a few conversations on the street
Hmm.
because I took the conversation, down there in, Baltimore, Maryland.
Sure.
And man, some of the guys, they were just willing to talk. Some, they were open to talk about their challenges. And I
Hmm.
was saying, man, this is great because I never had no one to talk to about this. And this is random people.
Right.
I talked
Right.
to on the street, random black men I talked to. I will be back on the street this Saturday,
Hmm.
maybe around Wednesday. I'll say where I'm going, but well, which is tomorrow.
Hmm.
But as you talk about creating that space and giving them the opportunity, because some are not willing to just walk up and just come and talk. But if you create the avenue, just as those men going to the school, showing those kids, how those men maybe were excited about showing up, knowing that they are not going to be the only one there, because it was created, for them maybe to feel welcome, and that again, makes it a good thing not only for them but also for the students.
Let me say this real quick. Let me just throw in this shameless plug. But I belong to a black men's therapy group here in Chicago. It's called TMH Man Cave, and what that allows it. I joined it during the pandemic. And I still, but it brings together men. Where black men, where we can come together, and what the founders talk about is it's a brave space now. We can talk about the things that we are facing and be brave about talking about those things. So and it's probably about 30, 40 men that show up to these events. But man, I feel good when I'm there with my other fellow brothers and talking about stuff.
Could you repeat the
It's
name of
called
the?
it's TMH Man Cave and TMH Behavioral Services. Tiny Harris is the founder of that organization here. It's based in Chicago in the Bronzeville area, but they also even have an online men's group, as well. I think it meets every third Thursday of the month, and they do it through Zoom and things like that. So that has really helped me, with my therapy, mental health piece of it, as well, because they're trained therapists. But it's also a brotherhood that we can get together and talk about any and everything.
Man, I think that is important. Just having each other who, just to talk about, those challenges, because again, if the space is not created, and some of us will internalize the
Absolutely.
challenges that we are going through. And they said when we are doing great things, the time run out fast. And now we're at the top of the hour. But I'm just going to ask one more question before we
Sure.
go. And
Sure.
I will also allow you to, share where they can reach you and connect with you more, especially on the behavioral, opportunity, especially if they're in Chicago.
hmm
So, if you could give your younger self one truth about who he really is, what would it be?
Well, don't downplay my worth. The the one thing is that I've always told myself that I'm different, and because I'm different, I have to own that path of being different. That's the one thing. I have a book that we talked about
Yeah,
before, but lessons for the little boy. I talk about in this book some of the things that myself and 15 other men, a journey into manhood, and we go back and talk about things that we tell to our younger self. So, but if I had to tell my younger self that, hey man, you can do it, you can be a superman. And that's one of the things that I tell myself. I can be a superman, or actually I am a superman.
man, that is a important reminder. Don't downplay my worth or your
Yeah.
worth for
hmm
those who are here. Don't let anyone make
hmm
you think you are less than. And
hmm
sometimes we don't achieve what we want to achieve because we don't believe we are capable of achieving it. I am here telling you today, you are capable of achieving what you set your mind to achieve. Yes, it has to be within your natural ability. Because I'm not going to say if you are 5'4", go and play basketball. But we know there are individuals out there who have achieved things who may not fit the natural criteria. If you're willing to work hard, if you're willing to dedicate yourself, if you're willing to make the commitment, you can achieve just about anything you set your mind to. But it's important that you love whatever you're doing. So
Yeah.
those who may not fit the natural criteria, they love it exceptionally, and that's the reason why they make it. But before we go today, so Mr. Hazard, where can the listeners find you and support the work that you're doing, and also remind them of the book that you just showed us for those who have missed it the first time?
Well, I'm on all social media platforms, Robert Hazard Jr. On LinkedIn. I am Robert Hazard Jr. on Instagram, Facebook, Robert Hazard Jr., as well. I have a mentoring program, just me and the guys. So you will see me out, mentoring. I do mentoring with third grade boys. I've been doing that for the last 5 years under a program called the Gents. So you'll see if you follow me on social media, you'll actually see me out doing those types of things, as well as some of the other organizations that I'm at. But follow me on all social media platforms. I love to help inspire you, because I feel like if I'm inspiring you, it's reciprocal. I'm going to get something back from you as well.
I think that is important. Following and supporting each other, I think that is important, especially if we're thinking about making an impact.
Absolutely.
It's great that we, support each other.
hmm
And,
hmm
we are not going to make it on our own. We need the support of each. It doesn't matter what we do.
hmm
We need the support of each other. But Mr. Hazard, man, I just want to say thanks again
Thank you.
for being here on the Black Male Impact. It's a pleasure having this conversation. I know you have shared a lot of perspective and insights and knowledge that we all can benefit from as we continue on this journey. For the listeners who are here with us, I want to say thank you. I really appreciate you
Yes.
all being here with us. And if you have gotten anything from this conversation, please share it in the comment area and also share the conversation with your network. Again, my name is Dr. Richard A. Cross, and I'm the founder of the Black Male Impact. And the Black Male Impact is where positive changes are inspired. Thank you.
Thank you.